Hey, Michelle.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
And how are you this morning?
Good. Thankful.
Yes, thankful indeed. I was just playing some music earlier, because I like to get the energy moving. There's so much happening right now. First and foremost, I want to say happy Easter to everyone who is logging in and about to log in and listen to this whole conversation. And then secondly, I'd like to welcome our host, the lovely Monica. Monica is a friend and a leader here in South Florida, and I thought it'd be great for her to join us in this conversation today. So I'm going to let Monica do her intro, and then I'm just going to follow her cue, and then we'll take it from there.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I think actually this is an incredibly important topic. It's dear to my heart. I've actually been in the middle of a fertility journey myself, and I had no idea, and I've known you for quite some time right now, that you had endometriosis, which is the topic today. I've heard about it. I've heard friends who've had issues with it, but I really don't know a lot about it. So I am like really intrigued by it, interested in asking you questions about the condition, and hopefully like people will join in and listen and see that they're not the only ones. So so Michelle, I know about you, but I'm sure like some people that are going to sign on that don't know about you. So just tell me. I want to first hear about you.
So it's weird because your friends. I feel like I'm telling you things you probably already know, but for those who don't know, so my name is Michelle, and I consider myself a visionary actually, and I'm not afraid to step into the unknown and charter new waters, and I am the founder of the South Florida Fertility Expo. Journey into the space was one that I never saw coming. It's one that I actually shunned away from. And over the years, I have slowly found myself being pulled into the space and been asked by multiple people to share my story, share your story. What's your story? How did you get into the space? And I was quite reluctant to do so. And in the most recent months and weeks, especially now with the coronavirus, um, it's really forced me to dig deeper and to become more vulnerable and open about things that are important to me. And I know it's important to a lot of other people as well. And I think taking the step to establish an event also somehow forces me into the space of having to share so that others can understand um, why and ways and means in which they can be supportive and how they can help others around them and be more understanding and considerate of people who are on their journeys. And the only people can know to do better or be better is if we have conversations about it. So the expo happens once a year on April, which is National Infertility Month, and the week of National Infertility Awareness Week. This year it's on April the 25th. And because of coronavirus, we're not doing it online. So it's going to be a webinar, and we have over 10 speakers scheduled. And I just invite everyone and anyone who has a conversation in their head, in their mind, in their heart about their fertility to join. Actually, I think the webinar is actually a really great platform because it allows you to be involved and to be educated in the privacy of your own home.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to see you. And it's not like there's anything to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be ashamed of because, some of the biggest people in our communities have somehow been impacted, and it's becoming even more prevalent now. We've had Michelle Obama, who was recently in her book shared that she had fertility issues. We've had Gabrielle Union, we've got the Kardashians, we've got Amy Schumacher. There's like so many celebrities who are now talking about it. And more importantly, there are a lot of people outside of that in your immediate world, your immediate communities who are battling with it, and they're battling in silence. And so, to the topic of endometriosis, that was my starting point. And so I figured, let's talk about it.
And we've known each other for a while, and how we knew each other was always events, like people, and now we're having to transition all of this to a digital platform. So maybe this will help increase the attendance and the comfort level of people. Like you said, they don't have to physically go. Now they can actually listen to experts at your event and feel more comfortable. So I guess the first question is, since you are, you have the condition, so what is endometriosis?
So endometriosis is a lining of your womb that gives you pain. So it's really hard to explain it. So there's lesions that grow on the outside of your uterus, and over a period of time, that can inflict pain. It can create issues with your fertility. It can give you really bad cycles, monthly cycles. It can give you really painful intercourse as well. So, but how it develops is still a mystery to a lot of practitioners, because they still haven't been able to diagnose how it started. There's a few theories, and one theory that we have is that in most wombs, it's positioned straight like this. In my case, my womb is tilted. So when you have a womb like this,
Yeah,
when you have a cycle, it flows. It just flows. When you have a womb that's tilted, you are having a flow. There's a little bit of your flow that goes into your cavity, your pelvic cavity wall. So over a period of time, you have no idea that your womb is tilted. And over a period of time, that monthly flow went into your cavity wall, and it's creating lesions around your womb. And the only way that that can be detected is when you have surgery. And in my case, I found out after having months of excruciating pain. I ended up taking myself to the hospital, not the doctor, to the hospital. And during that trip, they found out that I had ovarian cysts. This was in 2005. So I had ovarian cysts that were the size of grapefruits, they said, and was rushed in to have surgery. And while having surgery, they recognized that I had endometriosis, and they cleaned it, which is like paring an apple or an orange. Like they cleaned it on the outside, and then my journey started from there. I was placed on medication, a treatment called Lupron, which is an injection, and Lupron it stops your body from ovulating, and so it actually forces you into a menopausal state, actually. So you experience everything that someone who's in menopause would experience: hot flashes, sweats, cold rushes, the whole 9 yards. And that can last up until a year. In my case, it actually lasted up to 10 months. So it was in my blood for 6 months, and then it took an additional 4 months for my body to regulate and come back to normal. So,
and what was the result after the procedure? How did that affect your body afterwards?
so after my procedure, I had a normal experience, no pain, which was amazing. Um, Having been on Lupron, it stopped me from ovulating, so I was healing in more ways than one, and it felt great. I also recognized, well, at that time, I had stopped eating meat a long time ago, and I used to drink a lot of soy milk, and I stopped drinking soy milk and went towards a plant-based diet in efforts to minimize the amount of estrogen that was going in my body through processed foods, and trying to find alternative ways to just heal and more, just heal my body in general.
Yeah, that's interesting. With my journey, I didn't know that, and what you're saying makes a lot of sense. A doctor had told me that the actual egg can have trouble latching on to the uterus because there's too much buildup on the uterine line. So they actually recommend for women to get the same procedure that you got prior to even trying any other fertility treatments. Like that's like one of the protocols that they like to follow first, is that first they'll say, you know what, we're going to go and basically do a spring cleaning of your uterus and then go back home and try to do that naturally, which is actually, that's the state I'm in right now. I got the same procedure that you did. Okay. So I got it done a few months ago, and she says, if you want to continue trying naturally, then go ahead and do that for the next few months, and then see, hopefully that this, after this, we have eliminated all possibilities that could be in the way. But I had polyps, and so they removed my polyps. So it's like a similar procedure to what you got, it sounds like.
Yeah, I had a laparoscopic surgery, keyhole surgery, where they went in, inflated the womb, removed the cysts that were chocolate cysts. Again, indication that because my womb was tilted and my blood flow was going back into the cavity, it created chocolate cysts, which is the dried blood that's inside the cyst. So with that being removed, it was like a reset, a restart. But it was at that time the best time to try conceiving, if that was my objective.
So Michelle, we're closer than I thought because we both have a tilted uterus. we both got the same procedure done. We've known each other for a while, and we've never talked about it.
Yeah, because a lot of people are suffering, and they're literally suffering in silence.
Like, I'm finding out now on a live with you.
Yeah, for the whole world to know, right? But this is what it's going to take, because there's a lot of young people who are having pains and they don't know. In my case, I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis. And the doctor said to me, how did you get through stage 1, 2, and 3? To get to stage 4, it means that you had to deal with some excruciating pain, which is what I did. I had to find ways to self-medicate.
You thought it was normal. This is a normal part of menstruation.
Yeah. I thought it was normal. I was made to feel that it was
tolerance, so that makes sense. You're just sort of like, oh, it's just a bad month.
Yeah. Like bad months. Yeah. Well, of all the months, because all the months were bad months. Yeah. So pain management is really, really crucial, and I think if we can help people to indicate or acknowledge that this pain is not normal from an early stage, then help someone find solutions before they get to a stage 4.
Right. That's, yeah. I think that's what happens. Women just take it, and they're used to the pain, and then they never go and get checked out until they realize maybe, you know, they're in a phase in their life that they're trying to conceive, or they're trying, you know, and then that's when they get checked out and they find out, you know, that they have this. So as far as the South Florida Fertility Expo, so how did you fall into doing that? Did this condition lead you to start the expo?
Yes.
Yeah.
And after years of battling again in silence, going through multiple stages of the journey on my own, um, having family and friends saying, "Oh, you'll get pregnant. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be a difficult thing."
Just
To
stop thinking
realize,
about it.
yeah, just stop thinking about it. It will happen. Um, and then realizing that, okay, it's not happening the way that I would like it to happen. And having to come to some self realizations internally. I I actually went away on a sabbatical. And on my return, I came back with this whole idea and concept of, let's do an event here in South Florida because it doesn't exist. And I saw similar events in Europe and in Africa where people were having conversations quite freely and openly. And I recognize that there's a lot of people around me. I have girlfriends who have issues with fibroids, with PCOS, with um, ovarian cancer. So many women I know womb issues, but there really wasn't a platform talking about it. It was all of the fluff and the journey from, yes, you are now pregnant. Now let's talk about that journey. But what about the journey before you get pregnant? The journey of trying to conceive. And as you get into the community, you see these acronyms like hashtag TTC, like trying to conceive, and you're like, okay, I totally get it now because I didn't get it before. But then when you really start looking into it, you realize that there's a whole community out there of women of all shades, of all races, of all ethnicities, having their own struggles.
Yeah, and those conversations are a little touchy because sometimes you do want to be open and you want to have these conversations, but sometimes people don't know how to start the conversations, and they ask a question that it's actually a horrible trigger for you, and you've been trying, for me, I've been trying for, it's already going to be 4 years. So it's sort of like, oh, you don't want children, and it's like, I do.
Yeah, I totally identify with that. Triggers.
Yeah.
So yes.
And then we have to keep in mind, obviously they're not trying to hurt your feelings or anything like that, but they just really have no idea. You've been quiet for such a long time about it, about TTC, that, so these conversations are important to happen, and the awareness, and then everybody understands that maybe someone's going through a personal journey, and, and they have to be a little bit more sensitive.
Correct. Yeah. People don't realize that they need to be sensitive until it's brought to their attention, because they think just asking you, "Oh, you're not having a baby? What's going on?"
Yeah.
It's not even what you say, it's how you say it. Because you can be loving and caring and ask a question in a way that makes that person feel comfortable to be vulnerable. But if you come at them in a very aggressive way, then that can be an automatic trigger and really upset the person for the rest of the day. So I would say to you that I totally identify with that, because within my journey, there was a phase where I couldn't look at anyone who was pregnant. I couldn't stand the sight of anyone who was pregnant, because that was what I wanted for myself. And that feeling, I've now realized it's a natural feeling for a lot of women. It's a natural feeling. But for me, it evolved. It evolved into a different space because I now realize that there's hope and there are other ways and means to have a family. And on a spiritual level, I also feel that the universe is going to give me what my heart's desire is, regardless. So it may happen in the most unconventional way ever. I'm open to it because I feel that by doing this event, I'm doing something that is outside of me, because it really it's helping me on one level, but I know it can possibly help a whole community on a whole nother level. And this, my personal belief is that the universe will give me what that desire is when the time is right. I just need to keep doing the work. And so I support you and thank you for just sharing your love and support for me and all the other women in your network who are silently having their struggles or know someone who's having a struggle, you know. And sometimes you just need to share the link and say, hey, just check this out, you know, and then you can just leave it as that without even having to have the conversation if you don't feel comfortable having the conversation. But we need to let people know that there's resources available for them.
Michelle, after your procedure, back to the endometriosis, the medication, did they give you any medication? And then how did that affect your body post-treatment? You said you felt better, but was there any kind of meds that you had to take prior to the surgery or after the surgery?
So after surgery, I was on a Lupron, and then when my cycle came back a year later, I started experiencing pain, and so I was taking oxycodone and Percocet, leftovers from my surgery. They were leftovers. And once that was exhausted, I remember once taking myself to the hospital and asking for morphine, and that was like the best feeling ever. But I knew that that was not the way. And then I eventually found Tylenol. I was taking 500 milligrams Tylenol, so I was taking 4 at any, you know, just before my monthlies, and I would drink alcohol. So I started to self-medicate, and I found ways and means to thin my blood, ease the pain, and curl up in an S ball for 2 days just to get through the first 2 days. And during that fetal position, you could say I asked God for God take this pain away, and He did. He took the pain away and sent me into early menopause permanently, in theory. So on one of my birthdays, I found out that I was in menopause, and that was like a whole nother journey that I didn't expect, because I still consider myself young, I'm healthy, and I don't have any other issues per se. I don't have fibroids or anything like that, just this particular condition. And so my personal belief is that the Lupron is what kicks me into that menopausal state early. That's my personal belief. But it is what it is. I am where I am in my journey, and I'm just hoping that the event that we do each year and these weekly talks about fertility can just help comfort someone who may feel like they're on their own, and that it's not the end of the world. You know, there's hope, and there's science, and there's technology, and you know, you can do this, and we can do it together. Got really quiet there, Monica.
Yeah. So, other than going to see a specialist, other than, well, you mentioned a plant-based diet, is there any other advice that you have, whether it's holistic or support-wise, that you want to give, you know, women that are having the same issues?
Right. So there's a couple of things I'd like to suggest for someone who's going through this, because it's a it's a mind bomber, right? When you're having to experience all of these various changes to your body and you feel like you're on your own and no one can understand.
Mm-hmm.
There's three steps or three components I think one should consider. One is your spiritual balance. I think it's important to find peace from within. But once you start to find that peace from within, then it starts to radiate in all the other areas and aspects of your journey. Okay. Um, Whatever your spiritual belief is, whatever your foundation is, or your inner guidance and inner comfort, go to that. For me, it took me going to the beach, doing yoga, having silent meditations, literally going to the ocean and crying and talking to God at the beach and spending the day at the beach and finding serenity and peace within that time frame and doing it on a regular basis. There was a time on a Sunday morning, I used to go to the beach in Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, and do yoga with a group of community members there. And that was the break of dawn. We would be there doing yoga. And for me, that was a really great time for me to just center my mind, body, and spirit, right? So that's spiritual. Then, from a physical standpoint, I think it's important to look at your diet. Your diet has a lot to do with the functionings of your body. Um, Endometriosis is one of those um, conditions that feeds off estrogen, and reducing the amount of estrogen that you put in your body can impact your monthly experience, your monthly cycles, and your monthly journey where that's concerned. I stopped. I had stopped eating meat back in 1992. So, excuse me. The only thing that I was taking that had a lot of estrogen in it was soy milk.
Soy, yeah.
So I stopped drinking soy milk and I stopped eating a lot of tofu and um, soy-based vegan products. I stopped eating a lot of that. I started going more to greens and beans for my diet. I stopped drinking red wine. I realized that whenever I drank red wine, my cycle would be excruciating. So I stopped drinking red wine. I stopped drinking wine altogether for the most part, other than white wines. Coffee. Coffee is another component, and Red Bull, anything that had caffeine. Again, no one told me. I just realized that if I drank a lot of coffee, I would have excruciating pains. And once I stopped drinking coffee and stopped drinking Red Bull and any product that had a lot of caffeine in it, my experience was so much easier on my body and I could get through the days. And so for me, those are some of the things that I had to monitor. And again, everyone's body is different.
Yeah.
But I think if you start to observe what you're eating, how you're eating it, your frequency, and acknowledging, equating that to your pain level, then that would also help you greatly. Back then, I wasn't really on to CBD products, but I would do a lot of massage with castor oil as well. And that's womb massage. I think the Mayan culture has a womb massage that they do with castor oils and heating pads. And so, again, I started to look at alternative ways and means to create ease in my body. And it helped. It helped significantly. So we talked about spiritual, we talked about our physical, and then our mental. Our mental, that for me took a lot of time as well, because I found that being in pain almost and subconsciously, I wasn't even aware. The guy I was dating at the time told me that when I was on medication, I became a vulture. And I did believe it because I couldn't see it. But looking back now, I realize that mentally, it's important to have positive thoughts and to keep yourself in a positive space. And even though you're going to deal with individuals who may share words of wisdom, but they may do it in a way that offends you or upsets you, mentally, I found myself having to pull back and not take it personal, recognizing that they're on their journey, I'm on my journey, and it's almost as if you have to be that bigger person all the time because you know that they don't know and they don't realize that the words that they're saying could be really offensive. So like, even for example, my mother would say things sometimes that she didn't know she was hurting me, but it would sit in my head for days, you know, just like simple things that she would say would just sit on me for a long time. And then I had to figure out how to offload what people say to me and how to not internalize it. And I'm sure it may be the same for you.
Yeah.
Self-care is really, really important.
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody's bodies are different, and you'll see that all types of women get pregnant. And sometimes you look at somebody else and you're like, well, I'm monitoring my weight, I'm exercising, I'm doing things right. Someone that's heavier than me is pregnant. How did that happen? It's like, so you can't, everybody's body is different. For me, when I got into an exercise routine, I had always irregular menstruation. So the moment that I started creating that physical routine, I was able to track my menstrual cycle because it became consistent again. So then, that's another thing. I don't know, everyone's different, but that's what they can look at it too, is their physical activity. For me, it helped me become regular. And when you're regular, you're able to then predict your ovulation. And that helps you in the process. Before, you thought, oh, just have a crazy night and you get pregnant. But it doesn't work that way. If the crazy night doesn't fall that that cycle, you're out of luck.
Many nights, many crazy nights. It's weird, like, when I was a teenager, I used to hear my parents say, "Don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't come home with a baby, don't do this, don't do that." So subconsciously, there was this fear, right?
Fear. Oh my God! Like, yeah.
Pregnant, gotta get my education, and now there's a side of me that thinks, wow, I should have just thrown it up, gotten pregnant. I would be in this journey right now.
I should have been careless sooner. I think that's probably why we're having a lot of issues too. I mean, naturally, we're more fertile when we're younger, and we're waiting longer and longer because we're planners now. Both of you and I are busybodies. We're always working and thinking of new projects, and then time passes by. So, which is for another time. I don't want to start talking about that, but I know that that's also going to be a really interesting topic going forward, which is now women have the opportunity to freeze eggs and plan their fertility, not freak out. I'm 30, my biological clock is ticking, and I'm not married yet, and I'm not this yet. I'm not, so I think that that's going to be really interesting at your expo to be able to learn more information about those types of options, because we're always so stressed out about time, and time is so crucial for women.
Yeah, it is. And even at this very moment in this coronavirus pandemic, that it's really impacting a lot of people, with obviously thoughts in relation to funding, being able to afford if people have lost their jobs. Is having a family, is this the right time to even think about having a family? If you're trying to just create financial stability, and during that window of planning or trying to maintain stability, do you lose that window to have children or to make those plans? There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ways in which we can counter that, but then it all boils down to finances as well. So,
Yeah.
planning is great, um, but having access to the funding to execute these dreams is also important, and that's another conversation. We will have that. We have a Dr. Camille Hammond from the Cade Foundation. They
Mm-hmm.
actually provide funding and grants to individuals on their fertility and adoption journeys. So they're able to assist in ways and means. Now, I'm not sure how the COVID pandemic is going to impact that, but
Right.
I know that that is something that has been in place for at least 15 years.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, then when is the expo? April 21st?
25th.
25th?
25th.
25th.
Saturday.
April 25th.
Yeah, so Saturday, April 25th, online. So if you go to southfloridafertilityexpo.com, you get all the details. We just invite people to register in advance so that we have the right bandwidth for
Mhm.
what we're going to be doing. We have speakers from the Cayman Islands, from DC, Atlanta. Here in South Florida, we have Orlando. I mean, we have speakers who were initially traveling here who will be joining us online. And, like everyone else, this has never been done before. And so they've been open to taking the journey with us. And I'm really happy about that because regardless if we have the event or not, the audience is always going to be there, right?
Yeah.
And everyone is, even now that they're home, now's the time to get busy, you know,
Quarantine baby making time.
babies. So now's the time to really make it happen or try to make it happen. And if you can't make it happen, to find ways to create balance in your mental space because half of it is a mental journey.
Yeah. Well,
Removing blockages mentally.
yeah. Hopefully we'll take this as an opportunity to not be stressed and take advantage of being home and be productive in another way. Being productive.
Yes, productive. Yes.
Right. Well, thanks for inviting me. And I look forward to helping you, and we'll be talking. We'll keep in touch. I think we should just continue supporting each other at this point.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you know, I've said before, it's bigger than you and I.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole community out there that needs support, and it's not just local, it's a global need.
Yeah.
And so, whatever we can do, I'm sure we'll be blessed in our own ways
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing. So thank you so much, Monica, for interviewing me. I look forward to interviewing you. And tell me a little bit about the chamber. Can you tell us a little bit about the chamber that you're involved
Oh,
with?
well, the Women's Chamber of Commerce of Miami-Dade County, we've been around for 35 years. We do host amazing events. As you'll see, topics like these, even outside of business, because this affects us on our day-to-day life. This affects us when we're at work. So, we are looking for people like you to always partner up and educate our members, and stimulate women in business, and just create amazing resources for them. Because it's to have a sense of community is really important. And so outside of just being a chamber, and promoting each other's businesses, I think we need to supply these types of these topics that are personal, and they do affect us in every which way. So you can find out, you go to wccmiami.org, and you'll see that the South Florida Fertility Expo is on our website as well. And we have a lot of great also like webinars coming up, all types of topics and fun topics too. We're going to have some fun series to keep us entertained and close during this whole quarantine.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you. My regards to your family. And for those of you, I'm going to say goodbye to Monica. Bye, Monica.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
So I just want to say thank you again for joining us at the South Florida Fertility Expo Sunday, Support Sundays, talking about endometriosis. I hope you got some insight and some information that you can share with your loved ones. And as we move forward, I invite you to go to our website, southfloridafertilityexpo.com.